neighborhood organization for more than 40 years. We're an all-volunteer board, and we have more volunteers leading other projects. Our goal is to provide accurate information to neighbors about neighborhood issues that the city government is deciding on and managing. The board does not take a position on any issue or at any city meeting without first polling affected neighbors to ensure true representation. We welcome everyone, homeowners and renters alike. This meeting will be recorded, and please direct any questions for any of the speakers to the chat function. Our first presenter is Beth McCann, who is she's the district attorney. She's also a neighbor, and she lives in the neighborhood. Is Beth here yet?
She's just coming in.
Hey, hi, Beth. You're on.
Hello.
Beth, you have the floor.
Oh, sorry. Have you already started?
Just as you came in, we started.
Okay. I didn't know if there was going to be a specific introduction or anyway.
I did introduce you as the district attorney and also a neighbor in a resident in Congress Park.
Right. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Beth McCann. I'm the district attorney in Denver. And sorry, I thought there was going to be like a specific question and so forth, but let me just tell you a little bit about what my office does and what we are doing about crime in Denver. So we have about 100 prosecutors, and we have a full staff of about 250 people. And our primary responsibility is prosecution of crime in Colorado, in Denver. And so what we do is when the police arrest someone, they present the case to our office, and then we make a determination as to whether or not there's enough evidence that or probable cause that we believe that we can prove a criminal case to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt. So I have an intake unit that looks at the cases and makes that determination, except for specialized cases. We have a specialized sex assault person that looks at any sex assault cases that come in. And then we also have a specialized domestic violence person that reviews those. We also have a unit that looks at the drug cases. And then we have another unit that looks at gang cases and more complex violent crime. And we have an economic crimes unit that looks at economic crime, white collar crime, fraud, securities fraud, things of that nature. And then we have a juvenile unit that handles our juvenile cases. And we have a county court unit that handles all of our misdemeanors. So the county courts in Denver handle the misdemeanor cases, and the district courts handle the felony cases. So we have assigned attorneys in each courtroom in both county and district court and juvenile court. And then as the case, if we file the case, then it gets assigned to whichever unit is appropriate. So if it's a misdemeanor, it goes to county court. And we don't actually do the intake on the misdemeanor cases. Those are filed directly by the police department. And they also file the petty offenses with the city attorney's office. And the municipal ordinance violations are handled through the city attorney's office. And so once the case gets in to our office, then an attorney is assigned to it, as well as a victim advocate and an investigator. And then we work on the cases. We appear in court. We handle the cases, and either they get disposed of through a plea agreement, which is the vast majority of cases do, or get resolved through a plea agreement, or they can get set for trial, and then they can go to either court trial or jury trial, depending on whether or not the defendant's willing to waive a jury trial. Right now, because of we're continuing to go through the backlog from the COVID, from our COVID pandemic, we got quite backlogged because the courts weren't hearing any jury trials for about a year. So right now, the cases that we're taking to trial are primarily murder, first-degree murder, attempted murder, sex assault on children, possession of weapons by a previous offender, sex assaults, and our more serious assaults, our more serious crimes are the ones that are typically going to trial as we work through that backlog. And then in our county courts, they are doing our misdemeanor cases. And again, there was a backlog there as well, but we're slowly working through that and trying those cases, assault cases, DUI cases, drug possession cases. Those are all handled through our misdemeanor courts. So that's kind of a general overview. We also have specialty courts that have been established through our office as well as the court system. And those involve our drug court, which is called divert court. We have a veterans court for veterans who get arrested and are charged with criminal offenses. We have a sobriety court for people who are in their second and third DUIs. So they get put into a intensive alcohol treatment program. And then we have our misdemeanor drug possession specialty court. We have a mental health court, which deals with people who claim that they're incompetent to proceed to trial. And we also have a wellness court, which handles some of the city ordinance violations for people who are having mental health issues. And then other cases, as they get filed, if they aren't going through the regular court process, they can go through our diversion program, our restorative justice program, depending on the nature of the case and whether or not the victim in the case is agreeable to that. So I don't know if there are specific questions that people have. I'm happy to answer questions, or I can talk some more about kind of our general process and how we handle cases. But I didn't know if there were specific questions that people had. I'm happy to answer those.
Beth, I don't see any questions having come through the chat, so you can go on speaking.
Okay, so my highest priority really is violent crime right now, because we are seeing an uptick in violent crime. So as I said, we are focusing on the ones where people are injured, murders, sex assault on children, those kinds of cases. And, people ask me, well, why are we seeing this uptick in violent crime? And actually, I'm not sure that that's continuing. We've seen some decrease as well. It kind of been fluctuating, but clearly more than we had before the pandemic. So I think it's a number of factors. I think it's related to the isolation of the pandemic and the economic insecurity created through the pandemic, anger, frustration. People are very angry right now, and there's a lot of certainly violent crime related to that. I think it's related to the proliferation of guns and the accessibility of guns in our community. And I think the woeful inadequacy of our treatment for mental health or substance abuse. We really need to be looking at root causes of crime. And the city's been making some progress. There is more funding for mental health and substance abuse treatment, but we're lacking in places where people can go and be treated and be housed, because as we know, homelessness is a big issue in the city right now. So that's something that I'm working with the foundation Caring for Denver to look at. Can we be more effective in funding where there are gaps for substance abuse and mental health treatment? So I think it's a combination of a lot of factors, and we are working very hard to identify what kinds of factors they are, what is causing that increase in crime, and focus on some of those areas. For example, we've started now a handgun intervention court for juveniles. So when kids are picked up with guns, but they haven't used them yet or been injured themselves, then we are putting them into a program depending on their record. I mean, we're not using this for kids who have a lot of criminal history, but young people who are involved in carrying weapons, we are partnering them with mentors in the community. And then there's a series of programming that they go through. And it's designed to identify why they feel they need to carry a gun for protection. Usually it's what they say, and get them more support in the community with people who can work with them and watch out for them. So we just started that last summer. So we've had about 12 people go through, and so far we think it's been a successful program for those young people to help them make better choices moving forward. So we're all constantly looking for ways to identify people who are likely to get involved in criminal behavior and to hold those accountable who do. But I do think that we as a community do need to, in combination with strict enforcement, we need to be looking at root causes of crime as well. So that's kind of what we do as an office. I think we have to look at a balance. So we have, for example, we've had some focus on motor vehicle theft, which I know is a big issue in many neighborhoods. And we just indicted a big motor vehicle theft ring that had 11 defendants. And we believe we've accused them of being responsible for at least 130 stolen motor vehicles and more than $3 million in funds that they have gotten from selling parts, selling cars. And that ring, we believe, is also involved in selling drugs and guns. And so we are really trying to focus on some of the bigger players in this arena, particularly in drug dealing. You probably have known or followed the fentanyl bill that was passed this session, because one of my big focuses now moving forward is on drug distribution of fentanyl. Fentanyl is responsible for a large percentage of the drugs that we see now in Denver. And typically fentanyl is mixed with a filler, if you will, usually aspirin or something that's innocuous, and then a small bit of pure fentanyl. And it's typically marketed in pills, but it can be in other forms as well. And so the crime lab was telling me that out of about 968 suspected fentanyl products that they've tested in 2021, 930 of them had pure fentanyl. So people talk about it being lacing other drugs, but in fact, it's really more pure fentanyl that's mixed with some innocuous substance. And that's what's so scary about it, because it is not controlled, the amount of fentanyl that may be in a particular substance. So we're going to be launching more of a focus on those higher level drug distributors. I have a meeting tomorrow with the FBI Special Task Force to talk about how we can partner with them and the work they're doing on drugs and guns. And then we have now I have a unit in my office that used to be focused just on gangs, but we're going to be expanding that to be more major crimes or complex crimes or organized crimes, if you will, where there are people who are operating together and either committing serious violent crime and or drug distribution. So that's something that we are going to be taking a hard look at. The new bill gives us a new tool called a new charge of drug distribution resulting in death, which we didn't have before. We could charge a distributor or a dealer with some level of murder, but it is a much cleaner charge to be able to simply charge them with distribution resulting in death. And it's a higher level than we typically would have been able to charge in a homicide situation. For example, manslaughter was probably the highest we'd be able to charge in a distribution resulting in death case until this law was passed. And it goes into effect July 1st. So we're going to be training our folks and looking at making sure we are effectively using that new tool that we have. And it also increases the penalties for distribution of fentanyl for smaller amounts than was the case before the bill passed. So that's going to give us additional tools as well to look at those kind of bigger organized crime rings. And then with motor vehicle or with that kind of effort, we also recently indicted, it was also 11 defendants, but also in a big ring that was using social media and then selling drugs and they actually were participating in a number of violent crimes. So we have two big grand jury indictments that we've recently done that I think will be significant in helping to address some of the major crime that we're seeing. So I know that there have been questions about bond and how does bond work and why do people get out on bond? So let me talk a little bit about that. So under our Constitution, everyone is entitled to bond when they're charged with a crime, except a class 1 felony, which is first-degree murder and kidnapping. That said, the courts can put reasonable restrictions on someone getting out on a bond. And there are different kinds of bonds. So there's monetary bond where a person has to put up a certain amount of money to ensure that they're going to show up again in court. And that can be done by cash. So the judge can order a cash bond only, meaning they have to put the entire amount up. So if it's a $50,000 bond, they have to put up $50,000. It can also be done through surety, meaning that they can have a bondsman put up the full amount and they pay the bondsman a certain percentage, usually 10%. And again, that's to ensure their appearance. They can also, the judge can order a property bond. So someone's house or car or property could be put up for a bond. And then there's also a personal recognizance bond, which is, you may have heard it referred to as a PR bond. Those are bonds that only require a person's signature, that they're going to appear in court, but not any monetary amount. So there are two major things that the courts look at when they're setting bond. One is the likelihood of reoffending. So is this person likely to reoffend if they are put on a low bond or no bond? And the other question is, are they likely to reappear in court, to appear at their next hearing? So the judge, when someone is arrested, we have a very robust pretrial services program in Denver. We're fortunate that we have 24 hours, 7 day a week pretrial program. And they will do what's called a pretrial risk assessment for everyone that is arrested. And they give them a test that has been validated by the University of Northern Colorado to help predict someone's likelihood to reoffend. It's not always accurate, but it's got a high rate of accuracy, and they get a score based on this risk assessment tool.
Excuse
The
me,
judge gets that
excuse me,
before, and then the judge also looks at someone's their criminal history, and that's part of the pretrial assessment as well. But have they been in court before for criminal behavior? Have they been convicted? How many times? What was the nature of the convictions? The judge looks at what the current charge is. So are they charged with a serious crime, or is it a less serious crime? And then the judge also looks at how many failures to appear they might have had in the past. So,
excuse me, Beth,
yeah.
we're running a little over.
Okay.
You can sort of wrap it up.
Sure. Sorry. Yeah. So those are the things that the judge looks at. And then my attorneys are in court and they argue for a bond that they think is appropriate. And the public defender argues. And then the judge makes the ultimate decision. So that's how the whole bond process works. So are there any other questions?
I've got a quick question.
Sure.
Of course.
In what happened with that white supremacist group that was going to riot in, I think, Montana? If something like that happened here in Denver, what type of charges could be brought against them?
Well, it would really depend on what was happening, what was going on. If we had evidence of like inciting a riot, that could be charged. If we had evidence of, in order to charge like an attempted assault or murder, we'd have to have some kind of an overt act. I'm sure they can be charged with illegal weapons if any of them have any conviction. And then the FBI or whoever's investigating it will look into social media posts. They'll look into any papers that they have. They will probably take their cell phones. I'm pretty sure they would, and take their cell phones, and then they get a search warrant to dump their cell phones so they can review all of the phone conversations, any text messages, and they'll look through all their social media posts and see if there's enough to charge some sort of conspiracy to commit murder or conspiracy to commit assault, depending on, again, what the evidence is. And I don't know yet what kind of weapons they had, but anytime there's someone who has a felony conviction in Colorado anyway, and I'm pretty sure it would be true in Montana, they're not allowed to possess or purchase a firearm. They may have had weapons that are illegal. My guess is there'll probably be federal charges. So they will look, the FBI will look at any potential planning that they did, any potential information that they exchanged online that could be the basis for, even some kind of treason charge. It'll really just depend on what they find in the social media, the materials they had. Did they have maps? Did they have information showing, did they have lists of people they were going to target? There'll be a lot of investigation done before charges will be brought.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Beth, for giving
You're
us
welcome.
Thank you.
valuable information. We're going to move on. Excuse me. A year ago, solid waste changed the pickup for trash bins from the alley to the street for 79 blocks in Congress Park. And tonight we have representatives from Dottie. We have Margaret Medellin and Art Mejia. And maybe you could start out by explaining why, and bear in mind, everybody, put your questions in the chat if you have any.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Margaret Medellin. I'm here with our solid waste director, Art Mejia, and we have a few other solid waste professionals joining us tonight. So thank you for inviting us. We understand you have some questions for us, wanted to get an update and look at some of the data we've collected. And I know Director Mejia has some of that information to share here in a minute. Did just want to start off thanking everyone. I know that the changes are always difficult, but we have been forced as a city to make changes so that we can provide services to the whole city in a safe manner, both for safer for our staff, but also for our residents. And so that's one thing that we've taken a look at and has really driven a lot of the changes we're having to make. But also want to let everyone know, we're always open to talking and hearing concerns and working together to come up with solutions that are going to work. It may not be the exact solution that you wanted, but do want everyone to know that we do want to come together and work as a community to help make the collection of trash, compost, and recycle as seamless for the community as we can. So with that, I do want to turn it over to Director Mejia to go through his information.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Art Mejia. I am the Director of Solid Waste for the City of Denver. I do have a presentation that I would like to share. Quick presentation, 8 slides, and we can talk about the service. And then we have some room after that to answer some of the questions that you may have. Is there the ability for me to share? There we go on the screen. Can you see that? We're good?
We've got it.
Okay, thank you. So this is the update for specifically for Congress Park. A little bit of history on Congress Park. We collect a total amount of 3,400 homes. We service the trash. Recycling is about the same number. We have 100% participation in recycling containers. For compost, which is a subscribed service, we only have about 30%, which is roughly around 1,032 homes in Congress Park that we provide that service to. Other services that we provide, large item pickup. We do that once every month, and that recently was changed at the beginning of the year. We used to go bi-monthly, once every 8 weeks, and we changed that to every 4 weeks. We do appliance collection. We also have an electronics recycling program. We do household hazardous waste collection, mulch giveaway in May. We also do a leaf drop event where we collect all the leaves, October, November. We collect all the Christmas trees in our tree cycle event. We recycle your holiday lights. And also we do have a small transfer station where it's available for residents to drop off any recycling, mainly cardboard boxes, but we do take some green waste debris. When we talk about the service, I just wanted to, we have this graph that we have put together, and this is a comparison from the last quarter of 2021. And this is a good measure to see how we're doing this year. The average cases per month that we had in the fourth quarter for solid waste. And when we talk about cases, these cases include not only service requests, there's also compliments, there's complaints, and there is missed pickups, container exchanges. So when we talk about cases, it compiles a lot of different requests from residents and not only missed pickup collection. The average that we had at the end of last year, right before we implemented our reroute in the city, we were receiving about 9,600 cases per month. As you can see in January, there was an increase from that 9,000 to 15,000. That was due to the reroute, and we expected that number to go above the 10,000 level, which it did. But soon after that, our customers really responded, and our route really became normalized. So we normalized the service in February, and as you can see, the missed pickups and cases per month started dropping. We can see in May, we have a little bit of an uptick. That's expected due to the fact that in the summer months, late spring, summer months, our collection of materials increases here in the city of Denver due to the favorable weather. One thing that I do want to point out for the residents here in Congress Park, that throughout the whole city, solid waste management picks up about 1.3 million containers a month. I have broken it down here by trash, recycle, and compost. So 788,000 trash containers, 394,000 recycle, 130,000 in compost. So that equals to about 1.3 million containers every month that we pick up. Our missed pickup rate, including taking into account the number of containers or opportunities that we have, it's about, well, less than 1%, 0.01% for the total pickups every month. When we talk about the Congress Park area, some of the top 10 cases that we see in your neighborhood, as you can tell here in this graph, we have the missed pickup for trash collection. That's around the 300 case level. We also have cart repair replacement, missed pickup recycling, compost billing, graffiti. We do public cleanup and private cleanup and graffiti. We also do cart service, exchanges, and then missed extra service. So as you can tell, the top concern from the Congress Park neighborhoods is missed trash collection. I want to talk about safety. This is one of the topics that we brought up when we implemented some of the changes last year. Our focus was to improve the safety of our employees and also to reduce the amount of incidents and property damages that we've had in the Congress Park area. As you can tell from this graph here, the incidents reported from last year, from June 2021 to the present time, we've had 7 incidents reported, which would be property damages. These incidents in Congress Park have been reported in the alley pickup side of the collection. We still have some alleys that we pick up in Congress Park. And the 7 incidents that we've had in this past almost year have been in those alleys. Since we moved those some collection to the curbside, we haven't had any incidents on the front of the properties, which is your curbside collection. This is part of this was the huge piece to our changes in Congress Park. We wanted to improve the safety of our employees, and we also wanted to limit and mitigate the amount of incidents that we had in the Congress Park area. And as you can tell, it has been working favorably in our routing system. The next one, this is a question that we've had also about cart assistance with the move to with the setup collection move to the front. We collectively, we have actively worked with the residents to make sure that we provide solutions to their concerns. As you can tell in this picture, this is one of the options that we have for collection service. And this picture actually shows during street sweeping collection. We have made the supervisors available. We do have managers that go out and make assessments on properties, and it all depends on the resident's need. We take a look at your specific need, and we come up with a solution for you. We have, since we started this program, received 15 requests for special collection, and all those 15 requests have been approved. When there are no viable alternatives, our drivers will get out of their truck and collect your cart from either the side of your house or from a place where we have determined that it makes the safest place for us to get those containers. We continue to communicate our plans with the Office of Aging. We understand that there are residents, our aging population needs help, and we are here to do that for them. Cart management. We've had some concerns and questions about, too many cars on the street, too many containers out there. That's also another area where our supervisors and managers have the ability to go out and make a visit and come up with some solutions, right? Whether it could be a set-out location change. We recommend that people share compost carts and recycling carts when possible. And that's not always an option, but everyone that makes a phone call to us gets a solution that is tailored to their need. And this is, when we talk about the service expansions that we have here, going through the process, we talk about weekly recycling could be a possibility, and we talk about composting being a possibility for everyone. These are some of the cart management options that we have as an option for residents if the program goes live. And with that will be my presentation, and we're ready for some questions.
And I think we do have some questions in the chat.
Could you take down your share screen, please?
I am trying to. There we go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm looking at these. Let's see. Okay, I see the first question. Says, how can we in the neighborhood have more input on changes to our services? As we receive these services and are directly impacted by the changes to the system, having some say in these matters would seem equitable and fair.
So we do have, I would say, and we talked about this before with Congress Park. We know that we dropped the ball when we implemented this program in Congress Park, but since then, I can tell you that we have improved the way that we are implementing changes in and around the city. We have an office that is helping us out with communications at all levels, through council members' offices, with our residents, with our internal departments. And that was a direct result from the mishaps that we had. And I took ownership of that. And I have talked about that in the previous meetings. I can tell you that we have improved our process and that we don't have this happening in the changes that we have implemented throughout the city since we had this setback in Congress Park.
Art, regarding injuries, are citizens reporting injuries to you? I mean, I know of 2 neighbors on my block that have had an accident coming to bringing their carts down the stairs. Is this something that we should be reporting to you?
Injuries, I mean, we have a process to file claims with the city that could include the possibility of injuries. If there is I can't really talk about a specific situation without knowing details of what exactly what happened. What I can tell you is that I have personally not received any reports of any injuries in Congress Park since I've been working with the city. But we do have a process to report incidents and accidents through our city, and I would advise the residents that to follow that the process that we have.
Okay, and the next, I think it's more of a comment than a question, and I think it's more in reference to 311. It says reporting an issue 2 to 3 days late in missing pickup when they call 311. So I think it's maybe a misconnect between solid waste and 311. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and 311. So I will 311 comes up often. What we do have with 311 is that we have a message, and as most people know, that there is an employee, there is a driver shortage right now. We are working hard to improve our service levels. What I can tell you is that everyone in the city of Denver is currently getting one pickup per week. We understand that there are some service delays, and the message that we have with 311 relates to the fact that we know when we don't pick up a street on a scheduled day, and we make plans to pick up that street the following day, first thing Monday, first thing the next morning. So the message on 311 relates to the fact that we would like our customers to wait 24 hours to report a missed pickup, because we know where those are. Now, there are cases where there is a one-off, one resident doesn't get service in the middle of the block for whatever reason, and he makes a phone call, and that's a little different, right? But when it's a whole block or a few blocks, we know of that situation, and if that is your case, that is the message that we're sending to our residents. Give us a little bit of time. We know where we fell short the previous day, and we will be there the following day.
Okay, the next question looks like it's partly comment and question. It says it's a statement. So you just deployed about 3,000 new employees, being Congress Park residents, who now have to take their bins to the front of the house to address 7 incidents. Safety, I guess that would be the safety incidents you're referring to.
Right. I mean, and I'm not really understanding what the question. We addressed 7 incidents. Those incidents are reported incidents that happen, right? But we don't have a measurement to track if we had kept the service in the back alleys, how many incidents we would have been talking about, right? I'm pretty sure there would have been more than 7. Our goal in solid waste is the safety of our employees and also the safety of our residents, right? And when we talk about property damages, those are real in the alleys. And the alleys are some of the places where we have the most incidents and injuries. And we're trying to prevent that. Once again, taking care of our employees and our residents. And it's hard to say how many incidents we have really prevented than just 7, or address those 7 incidents.
Thank you. The next question from Anna, and maybe it says no mention of issues with streets. I think you did address street sweeping and trash on the same day. Are those sometimes
That's her
filed
hand
as?
up. She'd like to speak.
Okay. Anna, go ahead.
Okay, some of the things that you're saying don't follow what actually happens. There was one week where the recycling was not picked up for 5 days. It was 5 days late. So you're saying that by the next day, you don't want us to report when it's 1 day late. We have to wait till the next day. So everybody on my block waited until the next day. Those carts were not picked up until Friday at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And our pickup day is now Tuesday, which is the same day as street sweeping. So it was a giant mess that went on for an entire week. It wasn't one person on the block, it was the whole block. I believe that your reports are incorrect.
So what the message we have is that if we do miss a block, right, we would like our customers to wait 24 hours to report that miss. There are some times where we have we miss the mark. We try to recover the following day, and that is our goal. I would need to know a little bit more details on your area, your address. We do have cameras in our trucks, and if you would like, I can put up my email address, and we can have a separate conversation on the side, and I can investigate what happened in your block on that day.
Next, we have a question from Miles, who also has his hand up. So maybe we can combine his raising his hand with the question. Miles, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Art and Margaret, for attending this meeting. I have a few questions. When we last talked with you, Art, I had brought up the issue where I live. I'm by Colfax, and we have streets that are fully parked. Currently now, we take the recycle out every other week and trash out, but coming this fall, the city council is going to vote on having fees for garbage pickup, and they're going to have a recycle and garbage and compost bins weekly. So can you give me how people on streets like I live on that's fully parked are going to put out those 3 bins? It's an additional bin now, because I'd like to know what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and how you're going to do it, and give me some timelines. I'd like this to be somewhat measurable, as opposed to, well, we're working on it, we're thinking about it, because the city council is also at some point looking at, our planning department would like them to remove single family zoning, and they're going to allow duplexes and quadplexes on single family lots. This issue is going to be quite critical if we're doing curbside pickup, and also with large appliances and things like that. It is very, very complicated, and I don't know if you guys are really thinking some of this out. Are you going to create areas for bins? What are those solutions? Are you working with right away on this? Can you tell me?
Yeah, Miles, every situation is different. And I know you said we talked before, we've emailed before, but I don't remember the specifics of your area. And that's why our supervisors and managers that are dedicated to Congress Park will go out and talk to the residents. One of the things that I can tell you is, with this new program, we expect some areas to reduce the amount of cars that they put out every week, right? With weekly recycling, there's going to be some areas where there's not going to be containers out there every single time we pick up recycling, because now the ability to use that container every week, it's going to be different. So you might not need to set it out, every single week. Also with composting, you're going to have the ability to divert some of your trash into that composting cart. But to address your area specifically, what I would recommend, once again, because the whole city is different, right? We're gonna work on residences or area specific solutions. So we don't have a cookie cutter approach. We don't have a specific plan that is going to work for the whole city. And that's why we have gone into districts to be able to have our supervisors really connect with those residents in their areas and work with solutions that work for you. The area of northeast Denver is completely different from southwest Denver, right? So what I can tell you is that we expect to have resources available to help everyone come up with a solution. This pay-as-you-throw program is nothing new. This program is used widely throughout the country, and it's working for cities. And that's the reason why, we want to implement something like that in the city of Denver to improve our sustainable efforts and also save the environment.
Do you have any contact information for people we can talk to? Do you have a timeline? Do you have a program? Let me know, because that's this is important, and it's only going to get, as density increases, there's only going to be more bins and more things out there. So if you're making some assumptions that the bins will be out 50% of the time, well, state that. Give me some facts on what your expectations are, because I'm just seeing a disaster coming forward, and I'm not hearing any concrete plans or planning for any of this. I mean, let's say I've got a refrigerator that I want picked up. I'm supposed to wheel it onto the street?
And once again, we do have a website, and I will make all that information available to everyone here. We will forward that information to the council office, and I believe they already have it. They might have that already. This plan is not finalized. The ordinance has not been approved yet. So we're still working on how this all is gonna, get worked together. But we do have resources that are available for residents where they can read and get more information on exactly what we are planning to do. But at the end of the day, once again, we're gonna have resident-specific solutions for whoever needs them, and we're gonna make that available for all.
Do you have a timeline on that?
We're still finalizing all those plans, Miles. I can tell you that we're gonna have enough time. We have a very comprehensive education plan that we're working on to make sure that this program is a success. So we're still working on that, and I will be able to provide that specific time and plan here pretty soon. I can tell you that.
Okay, just more of a final comment, and I'll be done after this. If the fees are charged as I think City Council will pass, currently we are now paying within our taxes for the garbage pickup. The fees, if they're, let's say, $25 million, the city will be getting an extra fees because they're now charging us. I would hope you would be able to hire people and figure these things out, because your department will now, the city will have $25 extra million to play with these new fees. So I would hope that some solutions could be looked at and plans made, or if you have to hire somebody to figure this stuff out, that you would have the resources to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Miles.
I've been reviewing the guidelines on the solid waste bins, and there's I've got a question. What are the consequences for not following the guidelines?
Exactly which guidelines are we talking about?
I'm talking about really, it's returning your bin back to your property. I mean, because what's happened, which I've noticed, is it's gotten to the point now where people leave their bins out on the street all the time now. They're not putting them away. If something like that is occurring, is this something a citizen should be calling 311?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
If you see containers that are left outside and they have been serviced, yeah, you should be calling 311 to report those, and we will send people to investigate and talk to those residents about the placement of their containers. Absolutely.
Maggie's putting up slides. These pictures were taken on Sunday, which is 4 days after collection, and which makes me believe that they now live on the in the street rather than in people's yards or their alleys. There is another slide. I'm looking for a resident right here. What, Maggie? Yeah, right here. That's it. This resident is on 11th Avenue, and they have 22 bins up against their house. And they contacted me and asking, I mean, does this, should I advise this resident to call 311 and say, there's 22 people, or there's 12 people are leaving their bins in the alley and not on their own taking them to their own property? Is this a one incident is what I'm asking?
Yeah, these are the type of incidents that we will send a supervisor out there to investigate, right? Once again, without knowing all the context of what's happening here, I really don't have an answer, but I can tell you that if we do get a case or a report that is letting us know this is happening and a resident wants an answer for that, we will investigate and provide some answers on why, why they're doing this here. And if there is a different solution to do that. So if you can forward me those pictures with an address,
Sure.
We can certainly follow up. Absolutely.
Great. And I have one more. This is my own question. The guidelines on the trash are to be 2 feet apart.
That's correct.
The guidelines on the recycle bins say 4 feet apart. Is this why is that?
Um, depends on the size of the container. I'm not sure if you're looking at the guidelines for the same size containers. So we do have 3 different sizes. The ideal guideline for that would be to leave, 3 feet in next to, within the containers. I can tell you that it's not impossible to service if we're not following those guidelines. However, it makes it difficult for our drivers to perform their job efficiently. We understand that there are some areas, as the one you may have you've shown right now, where it's going to be difficult to do that, and that's for us once again to go out there, investigate, and figure it out and figure out how we're going to provide that service.
Okay, great. Emma, it went away.
Illegal dumping.
Maggie, oh, this is a whole nother this is a whole nother incident.
Yeah.
There's an apartment house on Elisabeth where the trash had not been picked up for a month. And I believe I talked to one of the residents who said he talked to you. That could be correct or not. But this incident actually resolved itself yesterday. But I guess my question on this would be, is when something like this occurs with a small apartment house who their trash isn't picked up for a month, who do we go to? Would I advise that person to go to the health department? Because I realize that the bins are commercial. They're not under your purview. But it becomes a public health issue.
Right.
Where's the best way to direct these?
I would advise people to report it to us. We do have inspectors that regardless of the type of service that an apartment building may have, whether it's a commercial service or a residential service, we do have inspectors that are actively working to resolve some of these illegal dumping issues. And I'll be honest with you, there is quite a few issues that we have with people not following the processes that we have, and they just dump their trash in either a back alley or an empty lot. But we do have inspectors on staff that are supposed to be addressing some of these concerns for our residents.
That I really appreciate that, but from talking to the residents, they started calling 311 3.5 weeks before this resolved. So they basically got no resolution for 3.5 weeks. And sometimes that, it would be, I don't know when that would ever be acceptable, but 900-degree heat, I actually went over there. You could smell it from 80 yards away. But anyway, we're going to move on to the next question. And I'm looking, let's see. I think the question is from Wendy. It says, whatever happened to the smaller trucks that were bought according to city council? And I think specifically, this is a previous city councilman, Jeannie Robb, had budgeted for the smaller trucks to come down the alley to pick up the recycling. And that was probably 8-9 years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, what happened to the small trucks that we were promised, I think is the question.
And that is something that has come up, almost every time that we talk. I did go back because I've been here with the city for about 1 year and 8 months now. I did go back and talk to some people that have been here when those comments would have been made, and they have no recollection of those comments actually being made from the solid waste department or the director that was at the time working there. So there is no other way for me to exactly get an answer of what happened to those trucks. What I can tell you is that we never had small trucks specifically assigned to service Congress Park, and at this current state now, we still don't. We never had those small trucks assigned to Congress Park.
But those small trucks are assigned to Wash Park, Country Club, Cherry Creek, but not Congress Park. Okay.
There are trucks assigned to specific alleys in some areas, right? There are smaller, we do have a smaller type of truck that is assigned to a different type of area. But
Okay.
when I started investigating about a specific Congress Park assigned truck for the whole neighborhood, we couldn't find an answer on that.
Okay. Our next question comes from John. He said, what are the mileage driven comparisons of your trucks during alley collection versus street collection?
I don't have that answer in front of me, but that is definitely something that we can look at. We do track our miles every single day. But just talking about this question in a general solid waste, from a general solid waste perspective, from experience, it should not be that much of a difference on the miles, because you still drive either you're driving through the front of the house or you're driving it through the back.
Okay. I'm gonna skip some of the comments and just go to questions.
Okay.
Why should we pay for service when the current service is not as good as it has been in the past? I think she's referring to the change that city council is discussing.
Yeah, so we don't know at this point, right? We don't know if this is going to pass. We're still in the process of going through the ordinance and the approvals. I can tell you from a staffing and a service level perspective that we are doing everything in our power to hire people, hire drivers, customer service agents. And we do have some plans available to even expand our staffing levels if this ordinance were to pass. So we do have, and we are trying. I can tell you from a driver's perspective, we have a $5,000 signing bonus that we started this year. We have increased driver wages this year. We're looking at doing job pairs. We actually have done job pairs. We've gone to high schools. We do events. So we are trying to get more people into our system. But as you may or may not know, right now we're going through a very tough time, and it's difficult to get drivers. From a vacancy rate from last year, where we ended up was 35%. We're currently standing at about a 28%. Last week I checked on that, and we are getting better, and we continue to make good strides to improve the service that we have.
I'm going to thank you, Art. I'm going to jump to Maggie. She has her hand up.
Thank you. Just for the record, we do have a recording of a person who came from Dottie. Well, it wasn't Dottie then, it was Public Works, who talked at length about the trucks that had been purchased, particularly for Congress Park. I can send that to you if you'd like to hear it.
Please, Maggie. Yes, I would like to hear that.
Yes.
Okay, next, Wendy's got several questions, and Wendy, why don't you unmute and ask a couple of your questions?
Okay, let's see. I think you caught up almost to my questions, but let's see. So you said that one of the ways that we won't have 3 bins for every household out is because people won't necessarily need to put out all 3 for every household every week. Well, I store these bins on my property. I'm probably one of the only homeowners on the block who does. And I don't want smelly bins on my property. So I want them emptied every week as promised and as I pay for in my taxes. So yeah, I'm going to be putting 3 bins out every week. Secondly, as Miles mentioned, you could be collecting a whole slew of money in fees for trash collection coming up soon, but we're already paying for these services in our taxes. So I don't want to see any sleight of hand. I want to know where the money that we're paying for trash pickup currently, where that will go, because our taxes are not going to go down. I'm not going to see that happening. Where will that money go when you start collecting fees for trash pickup?
Or maybe I'll jump in and try and talk to this one. So thank you, Wendy. What this proposal would do would actually take the solid waste operations off of the general fund. So it would be a self-supporting enterprise, and we could only collect the fees that would support the service, the solid waste service. We would then, that money would remain in the general fund, and it would go through the budgeting process. You know, we would no longer have any claims to any of that money in the general fund. And what the city does with that would be determined through the normal budgeting process. So hopefully that makes sense. I think we would then moving to a special revenue fund, solid waste, the actual business of solid waste would then support itself, and it couldn't collect any more money than what it's using for the cost of service.
Great, but and I appreciate that, and I know that you have no control over what happens to the taxes I'm already paying. But what I can imagine happening is that when the taxes I'm currently paying get swallowed up in the general fund, I'll never know where that money went, because now I'm paying additionally for trash pickup.
And I think the only thing I would add is that you can look at the city's budget, you know, and there's a process where that budget is set. So you can see where the city is spending its money, but I hear what you're saying, that you know, that money is not coming back.
Right, and there's not going to be a line item that says, you know, $100 from Wendy for trash pickup is now moving to this other service or this other cost.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to need to move on. But before we
Thanks,
conclude-
Milo. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome, Wendy. Before we conclude with solid waste, just one final comment or question maybe is, right now there are petitions going around about getting the trash pickup returned to the alley. I guess my question would be, would these petitions go to you two, or would they go to city council or the mayor, or what is the suggestion? And what is honestly, what is the chance of these petitions being considered?
So I would recommend that you send the petitions to us. We will take a look at them, right? And just like every process and that we have, we take, you know, all comments from residents very, you know, very serious, and we take a look at the request that we have, and anytime we plan or we would plan to change anything, we take all those comments and all those comments into consideration. I can't give you a definite answer if this is gonna move back right now, but I can tell you that we are constantly looking our system, our routing system, and we are constantly proposing and thinking about ways to improve our services. So I can assure you that, you know, if there is a petition going, we will take a look at it, and then we'll go out and take a reassess the areas and make the best decisions that work for the whole city, right? That's how we think about the things that we do, and that's what we will continue doing.
Well, Art and Margaret, I want to thank you both for coming and taking the heat tonight, it would seem. And we'll probably be in contact in the future, and if need be, I'll invite you, Vicky, excuse me, we'll invite you back. Thank you.
Right. Well,
Thank you.
thank you, and good to see everyone.
Next, we have Elisabeth Epps, who is candidate for House District 6. Elisabeth, are you there? I see you.
Good evening, I am.
Elisabeth, I'm sorry, you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Thomas. Can I just ask, I am not sure if I missed this invitation at the start of our time. I know sometimes on Zoom, we ask folks to turn off their cameras for the purposes of like bandwidth and speed. Was that an ask that you made?
No.
In that case, then I would just like to share as I'm jumping into this that my invitation to you all is if anyone is comfortable turning on your camera, I would love it. I'm also the queen of multitasking and love keeping my camera off. But as we share in this 10 to 15 minutes together, I will say that the way my anxiety is set up, it would certainly feel warmer if I could see a couple of your faces. So that is just an invitation. So I am, thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Elaine. So I am Elisabeth Epps. I use she, hers pronouns, and I very much want to earn your support and to be your next state representative here in House District 6. I have been listening the whole time we've been on this call, and it's particularly exciting. Thank you, Diane. It's particularly exciting because Congress Park and Cheeseman Park, as you all probably know, because you're engaged enough to be on this call, are two of the areas that were brought into 6, right? So they're areas that are new to this new 38 precinct House District 6. And so I'm particularly excited to get to build with you all. In the time that for the first part of this call, right, we heard from DA McCann, and then we had an intense discussion. Hey, Beth. We had an intense discussion about services related to trash pickup. And it occurs to me, you all, that whether it's the granular issues, right, the day-to-day issues of get these bins off, get our trash picked up, keep our streets clean, or whether it's the sort of macro issues that DA McCann is working on in terms of community safety and public safety, that both of these categories of things really, really at their core are about all of us wanting to be well, to be healthy, to be safe, right? To feel good in our homes, to enjoy the places that we've chosen to live and to retire and to raise our families. And so it feels like a sort of spectrum, right? From trash pickup to fentanyl bill. But I think there's a lot of commonalities in terms of what it points to about what we care about. Since DA McCann is here, I will offer that that when asked about me as a candidate, I think if you ask DA McCann about me, the word she would say is, do you remember what you said to me, Beth McCann? You said that I was so reasonable. That's what you said when we spoke then. You said, I'm very reasonable. And I'll say,
that is true. I did say that. That is true. I did say that.
Yes. So if you like reasonable in a state representative, and DA McCann, of course, once was a state representative, I offer that I'll bring that to you. This was not, of course, the way that I necessarily planned to start our time together, but I was thinking a lot about trash pickup and safety issues. In listening to DA McCann talk, I want to offer that I've served for a couple of years on her community advisory board around policing. And I'll also offer a life lesson I've learned is be careful what you ask for, because when DA McCann was running, one of the things that myself and other folks in community asked of her and all the candidates was if they were elected as our next district attorney, we expected them to have a community advisory board that we would be a part of. And then she won and she did what she said she was going to do. So we followed through with serving in that way. I want to talk briefly about what brings me to this work, what brings me to ask for your vote, if you haven't already voted, over the next 13 days, and what I hope we're going to do together. And then I would love to spend some time just taking your questions. Kate, I did not look at the time that we started. Did you?
Yes.
Okay. Will you text it to me? Thank you, my dear. So I told you who I am, told you my pronouns, told you the transition into this talk. I was not born in Colorado, but as some of you have heard me say, I promise I got here just as soon as I could. I got here once I had an option. I'm a lawyer by training myself. I skipped my own law school graduation to race west. I drove 1,600 miles in 24 hours to get to Golden, Colorado, and to be a public defender. And as I'm sure the good DA would acknowledge, and as I hope many of you don't have to know, Colorado actually has the best public defenders in the nation. And so if you are a person who goes to law school and wants to help keep communities safe and wants to help keep vulnerable people out of cages and wants to help address public safety from a data-driven perspective, I promise you that Colorado is the place that you want to come to do that. So that's what I did. My mom died when I was 9. My father went to prison himself. I became a mother myself at 16. And we worked all the jobs. I worked all the jobs, but he was often on my hip. And after getting through high school, college, and law school, as I said, we came out here. My son graduated from Denver East High School. He has since finished school himself. He did it in 4 years, very normal kid, finished grad school, and he is now back at his alma mater coaching. And so what leads me to run? There are several things, but it's overwhelmingly the thing that drives me, the thing that keeps me up at night is overwhelmingly community safety. I am a survivor of a very serious crime, both intimate partner violence, that unfortunately is not in my distant past, but also very serious childhood trauma. I read, some of you are going to be familiar with that adverse childhood trauma scale, that has a list of markers of things that can happen in childhood. And I guess I'm just super competitive because I was able to check all the boxes. All of those things happened to me in childhood, but I survived. And as a young adult and now a middle-aged adult, Denver has been really good to me. And Colorado has been good to me. And so I'm driven to run because I want to help make those opportunities a reality for others. Community safety is very much what drives me, because, and I say this respectfully with the law enforcement folks who are on the call, cops, courts, and cages, the way that we have been doing them, handling them, it did not keep me safe. Did not keep me safe as a child, hasn't kept me safe as an adult. And I believe so much in investing in data-driven work. I saw in the chat earlier, I think her name was Anna, might be Anna, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it, but McCaffrey made a comment about, we're talking about trash collection, but made a comment about we shouldn't be considering something until it was proven to work. And I read that and it resonated with me because that's very similar to how I approach public safety, right? We should do what has been proven to work. I'm also very driven by environmental justice. This is a lovely state. Some of us are more outdoorsy than others, but whether we're outdoorsy or not, we all want to be good stewards of the resources that we have here. And as a community leader and as an organizer who has been working in social justice work, that is really the third thing that drives me. Y'all, when I say the third thing that drives me, I'm acknowledging that the political folks, say I'm only supposed to tell you 3. Right? There's lots of things I care about. But the 3 I'm allowed to tell you about are public safety, environmental justice, and then the bigger category of social justice. I mentioned that commonality that I heard in the discussion tonight. And your neighbors were really, really passionate about the trash pickup issue. I respect this deeply, right? For my whole life, right? At 12 years old, I was writing letters to the editor that are ridiculous when I look back at them, because why were local newspapers publishing my letters to the editor? But because I was fired up then and remain that way now. But that commonality, us wanting to be safe, it touches on energy policy, right? It touches on environmental justice, and it touches on affordable housing. And whether we're talking about trash pickup or talking about a fentanyl bill, we always have money for what we pay for first. We always can afford what we pay for first. So Kate is one of my team members, and she's the person there in the fuchsia shirt. She says that we started at 8:09. So this has been 10 minutes. I'm not sure enough of the format to feel comfortable speaking for 5 more minutes without making sure, I want to make sure I have time for your questions. So whoever our moderator is it okay if I open this up in that way? I'm going to take that as a yes. And I want to offer to you all, whether you voted or not, right? No one runs to not win, right? I'm running to win. The other candidate is running to win. Everyone runs to win. But I want to be in community with you and be accessible, whether or not you've voted for me, because I plan on winning on the 28th, sleeping on the 29th, and then getting back to work on the 30th, and would love to have coffee with you if I haven't met you yet then. So please let me know what questions you do have. Oh, there you are.
Here I am. Elisabeth, I have you down until 8:25. So we have basically 5.5 minutes. So if any questions are want to be posed, please put them in the chat. Or raise your hand. That will work too.
Well, thank you for that invitation. I will offer, right? We are in, and I'm realizing that I'm talking to a group of folks, some of whom may not be Democrats, which is I'm running in it. I don't know if you know or not. I should have said this. I'm running in a Democratic primary. I'm a Democrat. We need independents and unaffiliated voters. We Democrats need independent and unaffiliated voters to win our races, to pass good policy. And so if you are independent or unaffiliated or a Democrat, you should have a ballot by now. And I want to just put out there that as you're considering what questions you have in the next 3 minutes, in this Democratic primary, so we have 100 legislative districts in Colorado. You find folks, we are living in the probably second bluest in the state. So when we tell you that the Democratic primary is our whole race, we mean it in a literal sense, right? It's something like a plus 70 seat. So the woman who you pick to serve you for the woman who you pick to win this race is going to be able to serve you in this capacity for the next 8 years if she wants to. And so I think it's important, whether in this time or later, that you ask hard questions, because in this race, the two candidates who are on your ballot, we are as far apart as you can be in the Democratic Party. I happen to think that's a good thing, because I like our party being a big tent. Like, I like us having the option to have the best ideas win, but we are very different. And so I'm going to stop talking, which is a nervous thing, right? I'm going to stop talking and see if anyone has any questions.
Well, I see no questions and no hands raised.
I will ask a question,
Thank
Tom,
you, Beth.
since there are 3 minutes left. So Elisabeth, what do you envision doing your first session? What kind of bills would you be bringing? What are your priorities for your first session?
Thank you, Beth. So I have a friend who's running in House District 1, and we have been a big support for each other during this process. And we've talked about this, right? What do we think about, envision doing as we're coming into office? And there are bills, some specific bills around environmental justice and incentivizing electric vehicles, a bill around affordable housing, finishing through on some of the rent stabilization work that was started last year. And then, of course, criminal legal issues. I mentioned those with the caveat that we're going to work with the folks who are already doing the work. But one thing I want to specifically name about something that I'm going to do, that I understand this may sound controversial, but I want you to understand where I come from. I've always looked forward to what I was going to get to do in the legislature. But in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that we're going to need some brave folks to show up in the legislature and undo some things that were done this session. The possession part of the fentanyl bill, which I understand you had a position that I find acceptable on that, DA McCann, but the possession part, by that I mean y'all felonizing simple possession, is a giant setback for Colorado. I heard my future colleagues say the phrase, "we have to do something," but I sat through 16-hour hearings with public health officials and doctors who said, no, first do no harm. You don't have to do something if the something is going to be harmful. So one of the important things that we're going to do, and it's necessary if we're going to build on how we're addressing homelessness, how we're addressing affordable housing, how we're addressing funding mental and behavioral health, is we are going to have to reassess what we have done when it comes to refelonizing possession. People my age lived through the first war on drugs. It didn't work the first time around. And I offer that as an example of what I'm going to do, because 5 Democrats bravely voted no on this bill the first time in the House, got to the Senate, came back, and 9 Democrats voted no. We have to have enough of a progressive coalition who's willing to look at science, listen to doctors, and make data-driven decisions that are in the best interest of our community. So that's the lens that I'm going to come to all of it for, but certainly that issue around drug policy, public safety is going to be really dominating our first 2 years.
Thank you. We have one hand. Eleni, you have your hand up.
Yeah. Hi, Elisabeth. Could you perhaps comment, on the kind of large amount of corporate donations that are flowing into this House District campaign? We've seen some of that same type of money, because all politics is local, influence the neighborhood planning process, and with big corporations representing multifamily housing at the table and influencing that process. In fact, even being on steering committees and being in focus groups and paying their way through. Well, we as residents are set grappling with those situations because we don't have that type of money. So I would really like to hear your thoughts on that, because this campaign has really turned into a very different kind of campaign. So
Yes, so thank you for that invitation. I am, right, labels only mean so much, but when I tell you that I'm a progressive Democrat, there's some things that means. And one of the things that's at the top of the list is that I absolutely will not accept, have not accepted, and would not accept corporate PAC donations to run this race. And yet, despite that, we still have shattered the fundraising records for an open seat primary in Colorado, all with individual donations, with the average donation around $55. So right now, Senator Rodriguez has, let me rephrase that because he doesn't have the record, but the record for the most outside money, so soft side, not to get too far into that, but independent expenditure committee money spent against a candidate in Colorado was about $300,000 spent against Senator Rodriguez, who won his race 4 years ago. So this race is on track to shatter that with probably double that in terms of the amount of money spent against me in our campaign. My comment, Eleni, is that there's a simple reason for that. This isn't about me as an individual. It's because, right, all of the issues, certainly the top issues that are priorities for Democrats and our Democratic agenda, remember this is a Democratic primary, when it comes to affordable housing, when it comes to regulating greenhouse gas emissions, when it comes to collective bargaining and workers' rights, when it comes to teachers' unions, when it comes to finally repealing Tabor collectively statewide, when it comes to funding public education, the entities that have been our greatest barriers, right? So respectfully, the fine folks at the statewide Chamber of Commerce, like the apartment associations, the groups that have stood in our way are united in opposing my candidacy. And this isn't because of me. This is because they understand that if I'm able, as we did, to raise $180,000 without any corporate PAC money, to raise $180,000 from regular people averaging at $55 a donation, that means that when the vote comes up, when the mobile home bill comes up next year, right, and corporate interests are working to carve out the rent stabilization, which impacts, just like you said, boards and commissions all the way down to the municipal level, right, I'm free to vote as in the best interest of Denver and Colorado. So I think that the outsized spending, I think that particularly those of us, I should say, who consider ourselves Democrats should more than raise an eyebrow at the amount of groups, donors, and lobbyists who only otherwise donate to Republicans and to conservatives who are weighing in this race. I think it's very clear, and you don't have to, we don't have to question what their motives are. It's pretty clear. So I'm excited, but I also think that one of the things that we have to tackle in the next 8 years in the legislature is campaign finance. I'm proud of what Denver has done with public financing. I think that the outsized influence of corporate donors is insulting. And I think that those interests have enough lobbyists and representation at the Capitol, respectfully. And I'm running to be representation for renters, for tenants, for small landlords who have a property or two, for homeowners who are trying to get their, something as simple as getting their trash collected. These are the folks who need more representation. And because we aren't corporate donations, I'm free to do that and to vote and lead my conscience.
Elisabeth, thank you.
Thank you.
We're running over. So I'm going to introduce our next speaker. And that is Katie March. And Katie March, 2 minutes.
Well, thank you so much for being here, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. Wonderful. Okay, well, so my name is Katie March. I'm also running in the House District 6 primary. The election is happening in just about 2 weeks, 13 days or so from now. Not that anyone's counting. It has been a really tough race, and I've really enjoyed being able to have conversations with all of our neighbors and being able to go door to door and talk to people. My background, I'm a 5th generation Coloradan. I grew up here in Colorado and Fort Collins. While growing up there, I spent a lot of time working with community, everything from running charitable lemonade stands to fixing up parks and boardwalks, volunteering at the library when I was a kid. And I grew up with the value that I always believed in helping those around me and helping our community become better by working really hard at it. After college, I actually started working as a historian in museums. I taught kids Colorado history in classrooms all up and down the Front Range area. I also worked on civil rights exhibits and programming at the Smithsonian, and I'm really proud of the community that I built when I was working in that role. After doing that, I decided to begin work, decided I wanted to make a big impact on my community. And so I started working at the state legislature. I was the senior advisor to the last 3 speakers of the House. While working there, I was very proud to get to work, especially on the issue of gun violence prevention. It's something I'm very passionate about. While we were doing that, we spent time taking on the NRA and the Rocky Mountain gun owners to pass 7 gun violence prevention bills. I want to give a shout out to DA McCann, because I think, as I said to you the other day, I'm pretty sure you testified in favor of all 7 of those, and was really pivotal in helping us to get those bills passed. One of the ones that I'm most proud of is the Extreme Risk Protection Order law, or the red flag law, that we passed here. That's a bill that allows a family member or a judge to be able, or a family member or law enforcement to be able to petition a judge to have firearms taken away from someone who is maybe in a mental crisis or is expressing violent intentions towards others. This is part of the big federal package that they're talking about right now. And the bill that we passed here in Colorado, which I helped to write, is actually being used as a model for the nation because of the work that we did to stakehold this bill and to talk with a lot of different people to make sure that we came up with a really, really great bill on that. And it has saved lives here in Colorado. We've also passed bills that have required safe storage when there are children in the home, requiring the reporting of lost and stolen firearms, extended background checks, and protections for people who are victims of domestic abuse. And so this is something that I think that we need to continue to do so much more on. Something that I'm really passionate about is I believe we need to ban assault weapons. We need to implement waiting periods because they are proven at stopping violence from occurring by giving people a cooling off period. And another one that people don't talk about that often, I believe we also need to license gun stores here in Colorado. A lot of people don't know that in order to operate a gun store here in Colorado, all you need to have is a federal firearms license. And that means that you need absolutely no state regulation or oversight. And it means that, we don't have people who are going in and inspecting to make sure that those gun stores are following the rules, and they have no regulation or oversight to make sure that people are actually following the state level, except for our local law enforcement, who aren't often checking on that. And so that's something that I would really like to be able to implement as well. I also know that we need to do more to protect reproductive health care. This issue is one that's really personal to me. I had an unplanned pregnancy when I was in college. We chose to give the baby up for adoption. But the important thing to me is that I believe that every woman, every pregnant person deserves that choice. I had a very difficult time when going through my unplanned pregnancy, and it really made it very clear to me that not everyone can make the choice that I made. And that's why we need to be able to protect the rights to that people make their own reproductive choices and for abortion access. Finally, I'd love to talk a little bit about affordability, especially housing affordability, which is a huge problem here in Denver. Denver has become one of the most expensive cities to live in the country. We see that the costs are skyrocketing, both in rent and if you want to purchase a home. And, I've been out knocking doors in the district every day, and I hear from people who are really struggling to make ends meet. I spoke to a woman the other day who isn't actually, she was over in Hale, but she was telling me about the fact that her rent was going to be rising by 60% in 1 year. And she, living on a fixed income, taking care of her grandchild, wasn't going to be able to afford it. And both of us literally had tears in our eyes as we were talking about the fact that she was going to have her 17-year-old grandchild help to make up the difference in her rent because she couldn't afford it on her fixed income. And that's something that I think we desperately need to work to fix. I think we need to make sure that we have smart development. This is things like within my house, within about a mile of my house, we have probably 8 hotels and motels that are boarded up and dilapidated. And unfortunately, the only people who are living in them are the people who are camped in tents around them. And that bothers me because we should be working to make sure that those people are housed and can get them into homes and have housing first solutions, as well as wraparound services. And so I believe that we should be working to be able to build more affordable housing and developing, having more housing stock in our areas. I also think that we need to work hard to have grants and vouchers, because those can really change lives. That person that I met on the doors, we're actually working right now to try to get her housing stipend so that her grandchild doesn't have to pay the remainder of her rent. And that's something that's really important to me as well. Final thing I will say, I care a lot about workers and unions. This is something that I've worked on a lot at the state capitol. I'm really proud to be endorsed by 9 labor unions here in Colorado, and working on that subject is something that I am hoping to continue to work on in the state capitol. So I can't remember what time I started either, and I'm sorry about that, but I would be really happy to open it up to questions as well. And I'm not sure what time we're supposed to be ending.
We do have a few minutes for questions. Do I
Great.
see any? Elena, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'll ask a similar question, but mostly about the housing part of it. There are people on this call that have worked to help people who are unhoused and have worked with homeless people and on the issue for years. And in particular, I'm concerned about your acceptance of donations from the Apartment Association, a group that I'm very, very familiar with, a group whose members have contributed tons of dollars to things that are to encourage rent and discourage home ownership and discourage affordable housing at all levels. And it is something that, you're right, our community is suffering a great deal from. And at both the local level and the state level, there's been a lot of bad policy and a lot of big money that played into that bad policy. So my concern is, how do you reconcile that when that apartment association is very anti-affordable housing, and they would rather have huge financial incentives, meaning taxpayer support, to do anything other than raise people's rents? And they're buying up all the housing and they're making it, almost monopolizing it. So there won't be a supply and demand issue, because mostly it's going to be held in a few large corporation and equity firms. So how do you reconcile all that? How do you say you're going to work on housing for people like me and my neighbors who are being displaced, who I've had to take to the motels that you're talking about, one of which the city is planning to shutter? I've done that work. How are you going to do that? How are you going to listen to me and my neighbors and people that are being displaced?
Yeah, Eleni, thank you so much for the question. And I really appreciate you asking it. So as a staff member, I actually got to help behind the scenes on the Transformational Affordable Housing Task Force that was put into place last year and has ended up putting about $500 million into affordable housing measures. And to do that, I think you need a really broad coalition of folks, right? I think you need to be able to have people who are going to work to have affordable housing development. You need to make sure that you have nonprofits and organizations like Homelessness Out Loud and Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. I believe that you need to work really closely with lots of different groups and lots of different stakeholders. My experience working with the Apartment Association has been in favor of working to increase affordable housing. I don't agree with all of the positions that the Apartment Association has taken at their time at the legislature, but I think in order to really solve this crisis, we're going to need to be able to have a broad coalition of people to be able to help push forward bills and to pass, to make sure that we have additional funding, additional budget, and to make sure. One of the big problems we have in Colorado is Tabor, and the fact that our tax system is broken, and the fact that we do not have the funds that we need to be able to fix this problem with solely government funds and nonprofit funds. And so because of that, I believe that we need to leverage the funding to be able to make it go farther to help to fix our affordable housing crisis. And so that's my goal. I believe that we need to look at all of the solutions that we have to be able to continue to bring down the cost of rent, to bring down the cost of home ownership. I mean, I know for people that are around my age that there are a lot of folks that have been friends of mine who simply see the idea of home ownership as being completely out of reach. And that is something that I desperately want to change. And so my goal is to work on all of those issues.
We have another question from Wendy in the chat for Katie. How specifically would you promote a woman's right to choose, design action on climate change and police reform? And
Ooh,
bear in
that's a
mind,
lot.
we
I
have
will
about,
try to speak quickly. How much time do we have left?
I think we've got, let's see, 6 minutes, 7 minutes.
I can talk that fast. I think that's good. Well, so thanks, Wendy, for the question. I think I'll take them one at a time. So how would I specifically work to promote a woman's right to choose? So I'm glad you asked. One of the things that is extraordinarily important, and I would actually implore all the people of House District 6 and all the folks on this call, we are working in a Democratic primary right now, but after the primary is over, we are going into an extraordinarily difficult election season. So the first step that we need is to be able to elect Democrats up and down the ballot. I'm particularly worried about the Colorado State Senate. So my plan is that after the primary is over, I think I too will take a day off, maybe get some sleep. And then I'm hoping to be able to go all around the state and knock doors for Democrats to make sure that we protect the majority that is going to continue to help to protect a woman's right to choose, a woman's right to an abortion here in this state, and a woman or any pregnant person's right to an abortion here in this state. So that is a goal of mine. I also believe that we need to start working on a ballot initiative so that we can codify the right to an abortion in the state constitution. That's something that's very important to me. I would also very much like to overturn, we have something kind of similar to the Hyde Amendment here in Colorado, which says that we cannot use funds to go towards an abortion. That is something that I think that we should work on to try to change that as well. And also have some not so great consent laws on the books when it comes to the consent that's required to be able to receive an abortion. Another thing that I would really like to change, and both of those would have to be ballot measures. So I believe really strongly about that. Next up, you asked about design action on climate change. So I think that there are so many steps that we need to take. I know when I talk to people at their doors, they feel really, overwhelmed by the needs that we have when it comes to climate. We have so many steps that we need to take, and so many of those things probably need to be global. But the thing that gives me hope, and the reason that I want to run for state office and that I truly believe in the state legislature, is because so often state legislators can be the incubators for good democratic action. And I believe that we need to start making Colorado a model state for when it comes to climate. The biggest thing that I would really love to work to change, we have something in the state called the Air Quality Control Commission. And it's getting a little bit in the weeds, but I believe that we need to work to give the Air Quality Control Commission more teeth. Right now, they are a monitoring agency that comes back and says, we're checking the air quality and it's not great, and still not great. And it continues to report on the fact that the air quality is not so great. And I desperately would like to change it so that the Air Quality Control Commission has some teeth to come back and say, when big polluters like Suncor are spewing toxins into the air and not following the standards that we have set for them, to be able to tell them that they need to change their ways or they're going to be shut down or temporarily shut down, and give them some tools so that they can come back and say, you are not following the rules that we have put in place for air quality. I also think we need to work really strongly on water funding so that we make sure that we have clean water. Lead in water is a huge problem here in Denver, and we need to continue to work to fix that. And also making sure that we have enough water storage, because if we want to continue doing what I would like, which is to make our housing much more affordable, we are going to need water to be able to have water for the people who are going to be living in those affordable housing units. Final thing, you asked about police reform. Something I'm very passionate about. I believe we need deep reforms to our police. I think that we need to work really hard to be able to give more mental health access, including programs like the STAR program, making sure that we are providing services for addiction therapy and behavioral health. I think we also need to make sure that we, something that we don't talk about too much in the state is dispatch reform. I don't know about all of you. I got into a bit of a fender bender a couple weeks ago. And when I called the non-emergency line, and I should probably point out, I wasn't driving the car, but there was a bit of a scuttle over whose fault it was. And when we called the non-emergency line, they told us it would be a 6 to 8 hour wait to have somebody respond. I then said, well, that's not going to work. So we hung up and we called 911. And when we called 911, I got put on hold for 30 minutes before even talking to a person, before having anyone respond. And so this is something that I think we also need to make sure that we are correctly staffing all of our police departments, that we have people who are able to respond with the tools that are necessary. I do not think that every police officer needs to be showing up on a call with a firearm, but I do think that we need to make sure that we have people who are able to respond when we see problems within our community. I'm seeing more messages on there, but I'm going to wrap it up because I think we're getting close on time, and we'll definitely read, Eleni, I will read your comment here.
Thank you, Katie. Maybe you and Eleni could connect and get some of these questions or comments addressed. I'm going to be closing the meeting now. I do have one announcement that I was asked to make. It's very, very timely since it's almost 100 degrees. The Congress pool will be opening this summer after being closed for 2 years. And they haven't given us a specific date. When they do, we'll put out an email blast to everybody. And in the meantime, crank down the AC if you can afford it. Thank you all.